Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now on the Jim Cornette experience, what an experience it's going to be, ladies and gentlemen. There are those people in the world that when I get together with them, the energy, the positive energy that erupts can just bring the heavens down. And this guy is one of them. Boy, as soon as me and him get together instantly, well, here's another thing about this fucking guy. And we could just go on like that all night long. But we're going to be positive here on the program. He is not only we forget to mention that he was a great professional wrestler and star of numerous territories and the WWF and Smoky Mountain Wrestling in his day, because he has established himself over the last number of years as one of the preeminent trainers in professional wrestling. Everybody from Vince McMahon and The Rock to who's next? We don't know. We're going to ask him. We're going to find out. Dr. Tom Prichard from beautiful downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. How are you, Doc?
Jim, I'm always looking forward to a positive experience when I talk to you. So, yeah, we're going to make it a good one. We're going to make it a positive experience. I'm doing tremendous right now in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. It's a beautiful day. Skies are overcast, and if it's a perfect day to go swimming, I don't know. But anyway, perfect day to do something other than be outside. And if you have an indoor swimming pool, I suggest it right now.
You have been run out of your facility, the Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy, JPWA. Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy has construction going on today. Things are, the walls are going up. You're growing by leaps and bounds, and you've been run out to the sanctitude and sanctimoniousness of your automobile so we can get some quiet to do this program. But you know, you nicknamed, I think in Florida, one of those wrestle reunion things. You named me and Jimmy Hart the Feather and the Spike, because like Jimmy's always, oh baby, I love you, baby. Oh poo poo, how you poo poo, and I'm always like, this fucking guy, goddamn, what the fuck is going on here? You're like, he's the feather and you're the spike.
Right.
If that's the case, I think you're a fist in a velvet glove. You deliver a stern and hard message, but sometimes you can coat it in a velvet glove so that it goes down easier for your wrestling school students.
Well, there is that occasion when I do have to soften the blow just a little bit, but I have been known at times to throw a few goddams out there too, and it gets a little easier as time goes on. But then all of a sudden, I'll stub my toe on somebody and say, "Man, this guy has potential. He has talent. Why isn't he getting it?" And then I have to stop, sit back, and realize that nobody just comes into this business anymore. Nobody just comes to training anymore. From the perspective that I had when I started. So that's where I have to kind of stop and regroup and align myself with the fact that it ain't the same business that I grew up in. It ain't the same business you grew up in. It's a totally different world and a totally different way to look at it. But the one thing that never changes is the basics and fundamentals of what professional wrestling is. So once we get past that, and once I get past telling them just because Rob Van Dam did it doesn't mean you can or should do it. And I explained to them, you have to have a solid foundation to work from before you can start doing the other stuff. And some get it and some don't.
Everybody's got to realize there is a reason why some people are called an exception to the rule. Because if everyone was an exception to the rule, they wouldn't be exceptional, and there would really be no rule. Just because.
And if you have no rules, then you have rulers, and that doesn't work either. So there you go.
Well, there you go. You touched on something. We're talking about just training in general, but you said when you have to throw a few goddams in there, a part of the thing that has changed about. Some people are now upset about being yelled at in wrestling training, and which, is like in the previous era when it was the pretense that wrestling was a sport. A lot of these guys came from football backgrounds, or at least some high school level athletics or college, or even the pros, et cetera, or at the very least, we're used to being yelled at in an environment where they were being taught, trained, coached, because it was a business where you were getting kicked in the face. It wasn't an accounting firm that you were applying to, for a job at. It doesn't mean because Bear Bryant yelled at all those players when he coached Alabama that he hated personally every single one of them. But in the moment, you are imparting crucial information in a very short period of time. And sometimes it's, go to the ring, motherfucker. And,
right.
But it's like, I'm thinking that now the change has turned to where a lot of people get in the business thinking that this is going to be more of an acting class or a theater project. And, we have roles to play and etc. And everyone should be reading the lines. And the atmosphere has changed, but at the root of it, you're still getting coached in what purports to be a professional sport.
Right. And my attitude and my perception and take on the whole thing is this. It's still professional wrestling. We have a coach here, a basketball coach here, Rick Barnes, who talked about he doesn't cuss and yell at his players. Okay, and he's doing pretty good with the guys. But at the same time, I think frustration will reign in anybody who you're trying to show or demonstrate or communicate what you want them to do. And professional wrestling, as you well know, it is athletic and it's impromptu, improv, and a lot of elements combined that not everyone sees firsthand when they watch wrestling on TV these days. And it is a different product than I was introduced to. But at the same time, you still have the elements of a lockup. You still have to grab a hold. You still have to go through a match. You still have to understand what the mechanics are and how it works. And it's not easy. Therefore, some people react great to a pat on the back. Some people react great to a kick in the ass. And there's not too much distance between that. So you have to figure out, who do you need to do this to and who do you need to do that to? And that can be a challenge figuring it out. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when I see guys eventually getting it because they don't want to hear, hey, what the hell are you doing anymore, then that's gratifying. Because sometimes that's going to happen. And if you have passion for this, you're not going to be any good at it. I don't believe, and I don't think you're going to like it. You have to love this. You have to understand it's not as pristine and clean and clinical as some people may think. These days, you do have a clean, pristine place to go and learn and train and everything, and that's good and that's great. But at the same time, I think it really helps if you get down to the bottom of it and the nitty gritty. There's going to be a little dirt. There's going to be a little salt. There's going to be some seasoning you have to put on, and it's not always going to be pretty. You're going to get mat burns. You're going to hurt yourself. Hopefully you don't hurt yourself, but the thing is, well,
that goes back to what you were talking about, the basics. It's not that we're trying to say, okay, don't do the moonsault and don't do all these moves you see on television. We're trying to say, you don't just take 5 guys off a playground that are playing basketball and say, okay, here, we've got a game set up for you with the Celtics. Just go out and
right.
Then they're going to run as fast as they can and shoot the ball every time they get their hands on it, but they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. The basics of wrestling are meant to protect yourself and your opponent. But between you and me, we have, over the last however many decades, discovered, booked, broken in, helped train, given exposure to a large percentage of the people that have been big time stars in the major companies over the last 20 years. You can tell when a guy can kind of sort of is getting it, but the point is, it's not like a drill sergeant. There's been the accusations made that some programs were too physically demanding. No, at the same point, if you don't want to get cussed out, don't get trained by Rip Rogers, but he's one of the best in the world.
Right.
But the point is, the level of training that you get at the start helps you when then you go out and invent all that shit. And if you don't have a level of training to master the basics of how to protect yourself and other people, then you're never going to get the job on a mainstream level in a big paying position to go, except if a billionaire likes your high school friends or whatever. You're not going to get the chance, because that's what we look for. We look for, is this guy able to execute the basics and do things in a proper way to protect himself and his opponents? And then he can go out and do all the crazy shit. And you don't yell at people in training programs as much as you yell at them when it comes game time. I never yell at anybody me of all people, in a training session or in a seminar, unless they willy-nilly pick somebody up and drop them on their fucking head and almost break their neck. I yell at them on TV, because if TV is game time, the OVW television or the Smoky Mountain TV, there's plenty of yelling going on there, because that's the fucking game. That's the NCAA finals. That's where the coach is fucking yelling. But otherwise, you try to help guys get to the point where they don't have to get yelled at when game time comes.
Right, and I think at this level of being basic and fundamentally sound, if you can't take a little constructive criticism, correction isn't criticism, and some people say it in Rip Rogers' way, which I've seen him do it. But at the same time, once you go through that episode, 5 minutes later, he's explaining why he just went through his episode of talking to you that way. So, and that's what we do. And that's a lot what I do here is I may have a moment of, no, we just went over it. Why'd you do it like that? And then all of a sudden I'll explain, listen, let me show you one more time, and we get it done. And the other thing about training is I do believe, and I believe this business should be fun. It should be enjoyable, but it's also hard work, and you have to enjoy the hard work. I don't do the duck walks, and I don't do the squats and the push-ups, but we do the wrestling drills, and we do them over and over and over, repetition. And once again, we've said it many, many times before. It's like stand-up comedy in the sense that you can tell jokes all day long in front of an empty room, but you don't know if they work until you go out and actually try it. The same thing with this. You can try and do everything you can in practice, but the real way to do it is to go out and apply what you've learned in front of an audience, in front of a crowd, and get a reaction.
Yeah. Well, and that's why OVW was a great training ground, because it was set up like a territory, and guys could go out and get exposure in front of crowds of different sizes. And that's why, you guys, now that you're getting established there, it hadn't been long since you opened up, and already you've gotten some of your initial class of guys have already done some, as they say, guest appearances on Raw and a few different things. But down in South in general, there's a lot of live events that are running. There's a lot of local promoters. So guys in that area can get the chance to go out and do that rather than if you live in Montana. But the thing about your program also is, not only do you have an ongoing program where you can, teach guys from the ground up, if not, as a friend of ours used to say, not if they're 8 to 80 blind, crippled, or crazy. If they can't walk, we'll drag them. But if they have the aptitude and are in the legitimate parameters of what it takes to go through the program, you can train them from the ground up. Or you've also been talking about seminars where guys that are already established pros can come in for a weekend or whatever, to work with you one-on-one, because it's like, honestly, if you want to play guitar, you get a chance to work with fucking Keith Richards, one-on-one, every once in a while. That can only up your game. And I like what you're doing, because we all know the NXT program and the Performance Center and everything is, gigantic now. And those guys are literally being polished like a factory. We see the NXT program, but I fear for the people who get into wrestling as their first taste of it, going to the NXT program and think, okay, because it is so fucking clean and so nice, and you are so taken care of. The heart of wrestling is still, like you said, from the ground up. And I think this is it's a boutique. What you've got's a boutique program right now, Doc. Don't get too big. Don't become like McDonald's. And have 18
no, I don't.
And everything.
No, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near McDonald's. But you're right. It is pretty much a specialized service, and we do tell guys about the ins and outs of professional wrestling, which again goes back to everybody wants to be a star. A lot of people want to just get in it to be famous. And once they get here, I explain to them, I understand that, and I'm not against that either. I would love everyone to go out and be a big star, make a lot of money, and be famous. But in order to do that, you have to do this, and you have to learn this first. Otherwise, you'll get in the ring, and I had this happen actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago with a kid that, and the way it happens, here's a story. We're sitting around after we had just got done in the ring. I got a text from a promoter here in Tennessee who said, hey, it's Tuesday night. Can you send me a match Saturday? And the town was 2.5 hours away. The kid that had been coming to train with us, great athlete, good kid, but never had the opportunity to watch wrestling in his life, was sitting here, and I told him, you need to make an effort. If you really want to do this, you need to show me, and you need to show everybody in class that you really want to do this. You can't just come once in a while. You have to come every night. He was here, and I said, I'm going to send you to this show with this other guy. So he got to the show. They changed the match on him. Went in the ring. The guy called 10 punches in the corner. He didn't do that because we don't, strange as it may sound, we don't have that on our curriculum yet. But he did it. The guy told him, get on the corner and do it. He did it to the best of his ability, but that was a learning process. And he realized, oh my God, I do need to come. I do need to learn this. And he's been coming for the last, since then, he's been coming for the last, all this year. He's been putting forth the effort, and that's really the way it works. If you want this, you're not going to start out in Madison Square Garden. You're going to start out in some of these small towns and learn and get a feel for it and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. And we tell people all the time, it's okay. No, I have yet to see a perfect match all the way through, but that's the way this works. And we give everybody an opportunity to find out, and along the way, we, of course, give constructive criticism and correction. So it is a long process. It's a pretty cool process here because we do have our guys working and having the opportunity to be in front of people, which is very, very fortunate for us.
Well, it's the same thing as a band rehearsing in the garage. Until you actually go out and play in front of some people, you have no conscious idea of how good you are. You sound great in the garage, right? When you're the only audience is the people in the band. But when you get out in front of people and they start throwing fruit at you, then you're like, well, fuck, I guess we're not, and that's the thing, unfortunately, that we've talked about, we've lost with the loss of the territories is the chance for guys, like I mentioned, I think last week on a program, Bobby Fulton. When he was 19 years old, he was working the Memphis territory, and he was losing in the first match every night as the opening match babyface, but he was working in a 10,000-seat building every Monday, and most of it full, and a 6,000-seat building every Tuesday, and he was learning to work to the big buildings, and he was working with guys who had been in the business so much longer. And that's where the reactions come, your facial expressions and your body language comes from feeding off people as you are in front of them, and you learn how, rather than just making your own as seen on television. And so in a lot of cases now, guys are concentrating on doing the routine of moves that has been pre-planned by them, rather than reacting in the moment when something happens and people just blow and the guy just goes right on and at the same speed, same pace, same facial expression. Everybody's ducking with no surprise. It's not a surprise I missed him on my face. It's not a relief I was able to evade him on my face. They're just doing the stuff. And that the rest of all that makes it look right comes from doing it in front of people over and over.
Well, a huge void, too, today is an experienced veteran in there with someone with less experience, and guiding them along the way as well, and trying to help them and having that marriage, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 2 months. So that also is something that you're trying to convey and explain. And we do watch a lot of old video because the emotion, the feeling is pretty much out the window. And we actually just watched a match from Tampa, Bill Watts versus Jack Briscoe. And I know you have, but if you've never seen Bill Watts in his prime, as a big man, he could move, but he had everything he did in the ring meant something. Every move, every facial, every expression. And that's what makes the match mean something. It's not just the moves, it's the little things in between and how you do it.
Well, exactly. And so much of that was, like you said, the marriages of guys in the territories when they'd work, an angle and a program for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. That would mean that if you worked a guy in Louisiana for an 8-week program, that means, let's see, 8 times that it means you worked with him at least 50 times. Right. And if you were working with a veteran, you picked up something different every night as the finishes changed and what you were asked for, especially if you're a baby face working with a veteran heel, what he's calling every night's changing based on whatever the stipulation is and blah, blah, blah. And it was on the job training, but we saw a great example of it. And we'll talk about this later on the program. Thankfully, you won't have to be a part of this, Doc, when we talk about the Wednesday night wars, but Roderick Strong and Keith Lee. Roddy's been wrestling 15 years, and he's just so smooth and so good. And on the fly, when things go wrong, he can cover it up. And, at one point you saw him, they were trying to do a Tower of Doom thing off the ropes that just wasn't panning out. You're just like seeing Roddy just say, fuck it, call it. We're not doing this right now. And he got down and, but that veteran keeps the baby face that's not as experienced in front of people. They can drill all day long in class, but the veteran keeps him focused, keeps him motivated, keeps him aggressive, keeps him whatever, tells him when to sell. And, it just that repetition with talented guys is hard to replicate in school. So you can only take them so far. But speaking of how far, that's the thing. You can teach a guy from scratch that has never been in the ring before. You can teach him how to put a headlock on without stepping on the other guy's feet and fucking flummoxing up and actually take him over without landing him on his head. If the guy's been wrestling a while, you can still polish them and get them ready to do live events. And if a guy's been a pro for however long, you've still been there longer and you can show them some different things. Because the country music documentaries on PBS, I'll get on my soapbox here real quick and then we'll get back to entertainment. Every single country music star of modern times credits something from the Carter family or from Bill Monroe or from the pioneers. Every baseball player says, well, you learned that grip from DiMaggio when he did the blah, blah, blah. Everybody in every sport, even Muhammad Ali, when he tried to fucking blame Sonny Liston taking a bump there in Maine on the fucking old Jack Johnson anchor punch, right, from the 19-teens. They studied the guys. That didn't mean they had to fight exactly like them or play exactly like them, but they used the shit that those guys that were great did in a modern context. And so many people are losing this shit because they think it's just all about performing moves for the crash test dummy type audience.
Well, you're right, but thank God there is YouTube, and even the WWE Network now has some of these old school matches on there. So there's no excuse, except that you just don't want to watch old stuff. But even you've got to know which old stuff to watch.
Well, it's not all great. We've never said that.
No, it's not all great. I agree 100%. I actually pulled up an old Houston wrestling program and watched the early part of it. I said, nope, we're not going to watch this because this isn't what I'm talking about. But then I got to Harley Race and Terry Funk, or I got to a Jose Lothario match and just explained, watch his fire, watch his manner, watch how he gives the other guy space when the babyface walks towards him, he knows he can't catch him. If he does, if the referee's not there, yes, you've got to continue, but you know how to pace it, you know how to stop. it's all these mannerisms, all these, again, I go back to these elements that, I don't know that everyone understands or knows what to teach, at another school, but we're going to go over, timing, footwork, pacing, giving distance where you need distance, close the gap when you need to close the gap. Don't lean on me when I'm taking you over. Just relax. The hardest part, I think, is to slow down and relax. Yeah. And once you got that, the rest pretty much will fall in place. So that's just some of the stuff that we go over here, and a lot of the guys are getting it. And as you said, they've been on Raw and SmackDown, and they work some of the shows around here, and they're getting some experience, and they're being proactive too. They're in the gym. They're making videos. They're promoting themselves, trying to be creative. They're not all going to be great, but that's the way you learn. You try it this way, and then you say, let me try it another way. And then you find your niche, and then you keep on changing, keep reinventing yourself. And so far, we've only been in business. We're going on our second year now, and I think we've done pretty good. We've got a pretty good track record, and Glenn comes by once in a while, checks on everybody, and it's a pretty good setup. So, so far.
We've talked about how great it is, and it's in Knoxville, but we haven't narrowed it down. If people want more information on how to come to what will soon be the Harvard of pro wrestling, what's the website? What's all the information?
Well, the website is jpwrestlingacademy.com, and we have all our information on there for, you can fill out an application. You can find out anything you want. If you have a question, you can email us. It's jpwrestlingacademy@gmail.com. I usually answer the questions about training, and anybody is welcome to come by, sit in and watch a class. We just had someone come by this week. Actually, it was Tuesday night, come to think of it, and sat in, watched the class, said, I thank you very much. I'll be in touch. Didn't say I'm going to come train, but at least you can come in and see what we do. And that's the good thing about this.
You may have scared him off.
Well, you know what? I really don't change my training techniques for guests. And if they didn't like my style, that's okay too, because I really do. And you're right. I don't badger, although I can. But I try not to make it a habit, especially when I'm seeing someone struggling. If you're honestly struggling and it's just something that you can't get, I get that. But if I see a guy who, isn't, in my opinion, isn't putting forth his best effort, that's when I really have to see if he wants this or not. And that's when I take that velvet glove off, and I have to find out what you're made of.
Just slaps him.
I do. But no, I don't. I really don't. But
what's his name? Wait a minute. What's his name? The Lucha Brother guy takes his glove off, and that should be Dr. Tom's gimmick now.
Oh Jesus, no glove off. But yeah, if you can't take me telling you or correcting you, how are you going to take the real world? Because I don't want to just yell and scream and throw fits. That's not productive for me. It's not productive for anybody. But we do make an effort, because I know when people come to wrestling school, what do you expect? Well, you want some results after you're done. We do a 12-week course. After 12 weeks, are you ready to go to, again, are you ready to be headline in Madison Square Garden? You're not ready to set up the ring yet, but you can learn. And that's from the ground up, learning how to set up the ring and learning how to keep things clean, just learning habits when you start in wrestling, being on time, paying attention, learning the details. And what we do in the ring, actually, and you're well aware of this too, is a minuscule part of what this business really is about. And I talk about that as well when we come to class, because if anybody's made mistakes in this business, I certainly have. But I've learned from my mistakes. I just know I'm cut from this cloth, and this is how I am. I know now that training is it's an acquired taste. Not everybody can train people. Not everybody wants to train people. And sometimes you get into it and you go, oh my God, what are we doing? Why? and I've done that a couple times, saying, what in the living hell? And then again, I go back to the satisfaction part, and the gratifying part is when you take someone who knows absolutely nothing, and you see a light bulb go off when they can do at least 2 moves that they had no clue how to do, and it was totally screwed up before, but they do 2 moves the way you wanted them to do it. And that, for me, again, I'll give them credit for that. I know they've got a long way to go, but that's where I see, okay, now it's paying off. So here at JPWA, we want to pay off. We want to help people get booked. We want to help people get into wrestling if that's what they want to do. It's a hard gig, but at the same time, it was. I think, again, back when I broke in, back when you broke in, you had to know somebody who knew somebody, or you had to finagle your way in. You had to find a way in. There wasn't a wrestling school on every corner. You know, we talk about Glenn, the Knox County Mayor, Glenn Jacobs. Kane went to Florida to train with the great Malenko, and lived in his house, and he got a job, and because he really wanted it. And he trained.
And he went to Puerto Rico, and he really had to want to live down there. And then we got Dutch said he's about to go crazy. He has to come back to the States.
Right.
And, I mean, he followed it. He followed it.
Perfect example. Yes, of following his dream. And that's, if you really want to do this. And we've had a couple of people this past year who are showing me they really want to do this and follow their dream and pursue it. And we're helping as much as we can. We'll do everything we can. So, I know what it's like to want to do this. I know what it's like for people to tell you can't do it and you'll never do it. I understand that. I was told my whole life, but I also understand what it takes to make that initial break in. And because I understand that when people come to me and I know they're nervous, and I'm not going to yell and scream, I'm going to try and make them feel at home. I'm going to try and make them feel that this should be fun. It is not easy. It can be simple, but it's not easy. Simple part, fall down, fall on your back, kick your legs up, slap the mat. Simple, right? Well, no. If you've never done this, you need to tuck your chin. You need to hit the mat. You need to bend your knees. There's little things that people don't think about. How do you do an arm drag? How do you grab a headlock and take somebody over without killing him or yourself? Little things that we talk about, and the details.
Basically, you teach people to not be a menace to themselves or the public when in the process of perpetrating professional wrestling.
Correct.
That's what you're doing.
This is correct. Correct.
Hey, and speaking of perpetrating professional wrestling, you are going to be at an event coming up on February the 7th down there in Knoxville. That's a kind of a benefit and a tribute to, like we did with Bobby Eaton in December, this time for Tracy Smothers, who everybody knows at this point now has been diagnosed with cancer and is undergoing some treatments. And there's going to be a few people on the show there, and you're going to be managing, I think, though, correct?
Well, this is correct. It's actually in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is about 30 minutes out of Knoxville, with KFW, Ken Folk Wrestling. Tommy Henry promotes that down there at the it's a recreation campground. It's a great building right off the Parkway in Pigeon Forge, and yes. It is February 7th, and I'm doing a podcast with Tracy before the show, too. I'm going to manage Devin Driscoll, Mick Drake. They're known as the Industry, along with Shane Andrews against Kenzie Page, Henry, King Shane, and Ricky Morton with Tracy in their corner. So I will be in the opposite corner of Tracy Smothers. And let me just say this. Tracy and I have a long history. I've known Tracy for a long time, over 30 years, as have you. And we all know Tracy. I remember watching him wrestle a bear backstage at the Birmingham Fairgrounds and taking the bear down. And I'm going, what in the hell is going on here? But that's Tracy.
He's wrestled 3 bears in his life, 3 different bears.
Oh my,
Tracy Smothers.
Yes. Well, I saw one personally backstage at the fairgrounds, and the bear was getting hot. Tracy was taken down on the concrete. But we all known Tracy as the wild-eyed Southern boy. He's a guy who's loved the business his entire life too, and we Tracy and I have had our ups and downs and go-arounds and things like that, and so have Ricky Morton and I too. And Ricky's always said, you can't be in this business for over 30 years and I have a couple fuck yous go along the way. So I get that. And it hasn't been any serious fuck yous, but I remember a night coming back from a town somewhere in Smoky Mountain, and it was Brian Lee and me, and Tracy and I had gotten, I don't know even what it was about now, whatever it was.
But, in the Battle Royal, something happened in the Battle Royal.
Well, it was something was said and something was done, and I knew I could be a jerk and I could be I could be that smart ass, and Tracy wouldn't have any of it that night.
What now? Wait a minute. Here, the honest to God, the thing was back in those days. Again, that phrase. But the dressing rooms were separate, the heels and the baby faces. So people had been firing Tracy because Tracy can be wound up if you get to him right. Yes. It can be fun to watch him get wound up. Somebody wound Tracy up about something that you had no idea was going on about. I don't even remember what it was. And then the Battle Royal was like, oh yeah. And then here we go.
Yeah. So I was actually in that Battle Royal. I told the guys, just let him get it out right now. Let's do it in the Battle Royal. They said, no. And they pulled them aside. So, man, because I didn't want it to fester. I just wanted, if he's going to get me in the Battle Royal, let's do it here. Punch me in the face, whatever you want to do. But on the way home, Brian Lee and I saw Tracy riding with the rock and roll, and I said, pull him over, by God, pull him over. I may or may not have had one or two beers. Hell, I don't know. But I think we all did. And we got out, and Tracy and I had words, but not real words. I think we were just cutting a promo on each other. And all of a sudden, we commenced a fight and a rumbling in the grappling in the gravel. And here's a true story. We didn't really. It was like two guys locking up, and when we did that, it was like, wait a minute, nobody wants to fight here. I sure as hell didn't want to fight him. I didn't want to fight Tracy. I don't think Tracy wanted to fight me. I think Tracy knew in the back of his mind that I really meant no disrespect or any harm to him at all. Look, Tracy, I've seen, I know people like him throughout this business. We've all been there. I mean, and he was ready to go, but thank God he didn't really want to kill me. But in the process of this night, two girls stopped. This is along the freeway now, and two girls stopped.
Well, now wait a minute, Doc. You're being generous that this was the freeway. It was Eastern Kentucky in the 1 o'clock in the morning, so it was more like the side of the road rather than the freeway.
Well, it was the side of the road, but I guess it was the 4-lane road that we got off on.
Highway 23 or whatever.
Well, Highway Route 1463, 7.5. Anyway, but these girls actually slowed down and stopped to look at Tracy and me, commenced to doing whatever we were going to do. And Ricky had a few choice words for him, and they went on their way. And not 10 seconds or however many seconds went by later, here comes blue lights. And Tracy stops. He goes, hey, you got kids, I got kids. I don't want to go to jail tonight. Do you? I said, no, Tracy, I don't want to. So the cop comes over and says, what are y'all doing? And we said, we just playing on the side of the road. We're working on some stuff. We're wrestling. He said, all right, well, you got 30 seconds to get out of my county. Okay. So we all got in our car. I said, yes, sir. And came home. So, I mean,
he believed that you guys just at 1 o'clock in the morning decided to pull over and work out some spots on the side of the road in Pixley County, Kentucky.
Whether he believed it or not, he just said you got 30 seconds to get the hell out of it, because I don't think he wanted to go anywhere else either. But we left, and the next day everything was fine because, I apologized to Tracy. He said, look, man, whatever was said, and it was said out of just being an idiot and just being like whatever I was being that night, and I don't even recall. But anyway, so I know about Tracy's wild-eyed streak, but I'll tell you one thing: on February 7th, I ain't gonna give him no quarter. I ain't gonna give him much, Jim. I'll tell you right now. I might just go over there and pop him in the face. No, I sure as I won't do that, because I know I don't care. I don't care how sick he is. I don't care how whatever condition he is. I don't think Tracy'd back down from anybody. So
no, and he's got that stick too. He's got
that stick. Yes, he does. He sure does. And
I want you to hold up, though, for the heavily bodies, because those thugs were probably, the thugs, Tracy and Tony. T is for terrible, yes. H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail, because a thug can't spell.
Can't spell. That's true. That is true. But it's going to be a fun night either way. It'll be good for Tracy, and all the proceeds, all the tickets go to help him out for his treatment. So, yeah, it's in Sevierville. No, pardon me, Pigeon Forge. If you go to KFW Wrestling on Facebook, they'll have all the information. There's more matches. A lot of guys coming in for this event too, just to help out and be a part of it. It's kind of cool.
And they can also go to Jacobs Prichard or Wrestling Academy. What was the website again?
I'm sorry, jpwrestlingacademy.com. We couldn't do the Couldn't do the whole thing, I guess.
Wrestling, well, it would get unwieldy. jpwrestlingacademy.com for more information on the school. And we'll let you go so that Brian and I can turn our attention to the Wednesday Night Wars where one of the show dunked and the other one drowned.
Oh, I missed that. Yes. Very good. I thank you very much for having me on your show again. It's great. Always good talking to you. I got to talk to Brian on the Ron Florida podcast, the Studcast, but it's always a pleasure, and man, I'm looking forward to having a great 2020. And anybody again who wants to check out the JPWA, just come on, just watch class, see if it's for you. Come on in. We're located at the D1 in the D1 complex in Hardin Valley. Not hard to find.
I know it's huge. That's where the Bob Eaton event was, and yes. It's a huge building right there. You can't miss it. There's no way you could be blind if you could miss this giant building. Anyway,
right.
Yes. I love you, Doc. I will talk to you soon. Good luck on February 7th. Watch the stick, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much.